The sales doubled every month, and by the end of year one, we were able to generate £1 million of revenue profitably. This is all based off of great product that solved a real challenge, but then a Squarespace website that our intern built, just shooting from the hip. And we were able to end year two, 7 million revenue and 2 million profit. Year three, we ended at 31 million revenue. So we went from around about a dozen people to about 70 people. I won't lie, it was chaos. We were probably one of the top 10 fastest growing companies in the country. And then we got into the fourth year and the market had different ideas for us.
Went out raising 10 mil at a 70 mil valuation. And then by the end of 22, ended up selling to SDS for just under 900K.
Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
What should people know about the legend that is Rob Bridgman?
You get asked the question when you're growing up, what do you want to be when you're older? And it's actually one of my earliest memories. And my brother actually asked me, I must have been 4 or 5. And I guess my sort of naive self at the time said, I want to be an inventor. And straight away I was told that's not a thing, that's not a real job. And I think it was only when I started Snug about 6 years ago that I realized that that's about as close as you get to being an inventor. So I think sort of being an entrepreneur and bringing things into the world through sheer kind of will and sort of creativity is really inventing things and bringing things to life. So I think probably first and foremost, I see myself as being a kind of a creator, an inventor, a creative, and then to try and apply the kind of the business logic and reason to that.
And outside of work?
I am hugely fond of traveling, exploring new places. If money was no object, I'd probably be living in the mountains and skiing. Also love to read and to run. And more recently, I've got into wellness as well, as we were discussing earlier. So breath work and meditation as well.
We are cut from the same cloth, like massively. I would also be living in the mountains and skiing, and I'm also a runner, and
it's a dream. One day.
So then going into Snug, you've had a wild journey, and we'll touch on that throughout this conversation. But one of the things which feels really present is that you talk a lot about culture and values and how that has contributed to Snug's success, or at least did contribute throughout the journey. So can we start off by being like, what are the values that define Snug?
So it's evolved over the last 6 years. I think it really just all started with enjoying the people we worked with. So the first thing from day one was work with the best. And the second was to enjoy the journey. So I think we did a great job on the first. And actually, in hindsight, maybe I should have taken pause a bit more when the rocket ship was taking off, and really appreciated how good that was and how exciting it was. As the team grew, we realized we needed to really sort of codify our principles, because myself and my wife, who's a co-founder, couldn't be everywhere all the time. So it was really about how can we bring our whole kind of team along for the journey as well. So it was a series of workshops that we did with our team, and it was as we were really growing from I guess a small tribe to a town through COVID, while we're working remotely. We went from 12 people to 70 people in 1 year. And we realized that we really needed to put these sort of foundational kind of structures in place. So many hours and sort of weeks spent on Miro. Actually, the facilitator was the ex-CMO of Gymshark, so he'd gone and put that in there, and a couple of other places. So he kind of helped get that those cultural values in place in our early playbook as well. And really, it was about doing things not just better or differently, but really ripping up the playbook and challenging the status quo. So at its heart, Snug is a next generation challenger, and that's from eat big fish, sort of challenger thinking, and it's really about emphasizing that there's a better and different way of doing things. So that was the old way of doing things, and this is the new way.
Yeah, being a rebel and being a challenger really shines through with you. How does that translate into day to day? Like, how does that value get enacted in meetings, one-to-ones, in how the brand communicates, how you design strategy? Like, where's the place that you felt it most?
The two examples that immediately spring to mind, the first one is on the brand. So we have this rule that if you take the Snug brand name off of that piece of marketing, or you take Snug off of that campaign idea, could any other brand just slap their name on it, and would it sort of make sense for them? So it was a bit of a litmus test for us, really, in terms of if another brand could get away with doing that, then it just wasn't Snug enough. So we would always push ourselves and push the industry outside of typical kind of norms and outside of our comfort zone. So we would ensure that whenever we were coming up with a new idea, whether it was a product name or whether it was a campaign idea, we would look at sort of moonshots. We would look at like really out there ideas, and we would push our team and our agency to just have a lot of fun with that. And we found it was a lot easier to pare that back than to do it the other way around. So, really trying to instill that contrarian thinking, that sort of challenger thinking at the outset with the brand. I think when it comes to the team and specifically like how we have looked to develop our culture, it's around ensuring that people have the opportunity to really learn and to grow. So ensuring that people have the opportunities to make mistakes, and then on day one, as part of the onboarding, we said, look, mistakes happen. Mistakes are expected. In fact, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not pushing the boundaries quite enough. All that we ask is that, if you make a mistake, that you either look to fix it, and if you can't do that, you just let someone know. So I think the worst thing, or one of my biggest kind of fears, is that we just become like every other brand that's out there, and a bit like wallpaper. So not really pushing the boundaries hard enough. And I think the easiest way to just become comfortable and just to coast is by doing things as everyone else does them.
I love that phrase, not becoming wallpaper. Stephen Bartlett also talks about that in his book. And I think the summary of it was like, the worst thing is being indifferent, is people being indifferent about you and your brand. And actually you need to polarize people and have, if 80% of people like really dislike you with a strong passion, means that 20% of people love you with a strong passion. And that's so much more powerful than everyone being like, oh yeah, they're okay. how does encouraging failure and creating this safe space that people can fail forward, how does that translate down into performance management, into KPIs? Because if you're tracking like just pure revenue growth, let's say, or that's a KPI for a team, then that actually might not mean that people prioritize experimenting more. So like, can you boil it down to the minute details of like, how do you align incentives with that value?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have OKRs that are set at a company level that then trickle down into departments and teams and individuals. And ultimately, it all ladders up to one common objective for the business. That is the sort of the day job, is ensuring that we're hitting or exceeding targets. Outside of that, what we try to do is a few different things. So one is we set up cross-functional projects across different teams and departments, and we ensure that in there we are trying new things, and we're reporting not only on the things that went well, but the things that didn't go well. And actually, I think that's even more important, the things that didn't go well. And we've set up 2 different channels on Slack. So we've got Snug wins and Snug failures. And we like to encourage people to post as much as possible in those. I'll be honest, there's a lot more in Snug wins than failures. Maybe not because we're having a lot more wins than failures. It might be something to do with it's quite uncomfortable sort of sharing that, I messed up on this with 60 odd people. But outside of that, we've also introduced a couple of different initiatives. So one is around Golden Hour, and this is an hour each day whereby you can work on anything you want. So it could be it could be a passion project, it could be specific to a campaign, it could be catching up on emails or Slack. It could be taking your dog for a walk. It could be, taking your kids to school or going to an appointment. But what we realized is unless we allowed ourselves and then others to sort of carve out this time, it all became very monotonous and very structured, and it didn't really allow enough time for people to just pause and do something that re-engages them through the workday. The other one, and I guess it's sort of a similar example, but every Wednesday morning we would have a focus morning. So between 8 and 12 o'clock, we would ensure that there'd be no company meetings, no other meetings externally. And that was just pure focus time. I guess, whilst it's not specifically linked to failure, it was and is a great way of allowing people that freedom and allowing people to prioritize their time and workloads accordingly, and not just get burnt out by this always on kind of digital culture.
Golden hours every day.
Every day, yes.
And people could choose whichever hour of the day.
Yeah, so the only rule is that people have to put it onto their Slack status, and ideally into their calendars as well. And then you need to respect that hour. So don't be messaging someone unless there's a sort of a raging fire that you just can't deal without them.
Yeah.
Respect that time, because that's sort of time that they've set for themselves.
Very healthy, balanced culture, which I think then giving people that space and sort of like not forcing it on them, but really encouraging them to take that space then contributes to the space for creativity. And then that then contributes to like thinking bigger, being that challenger brand. That amazing how that trickles down. So then going to this other value of hiring the best, how does that also translate? Or was the value working with the best?
Yes, working with the best, yeah, and enjoying the journey.
and enjoying the journey. And so then how does that value translate into the day-to-day? Like, how are we encouraging people to be the best? Let's say we're hiring people, and that's obviously baked into the hiring process, and that's the standard you hit. And then once people in, it's not like, oh, you're the best, you can chill now. I'm assuming you're still pushing people to grow and outperform who they were in the past.
Absolutely. So it all starts with the hiring process. So work with the best is obviously quite subjective. We tried to put some metrics to it in terms of hiring top 5% talent. In reality, we've never measured that, and I don't think we'd even be able to. But so that was our sort of mindset going into hiring and onboarding people. I think when people are in, the key really is about understanding where they're at and how they're performing. So one of the absolute must-haves for us is around either weekly or bi-weekly one-to-ones. So we have specific agendas that each of the managers will go through, it will be asking people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how they're feeling today and the reasons why that is. It'll be going through their objectives and key results and doing a kind of a red, amber, green sort of status on that. And then invariably, it gets to difficult conversations from time to time. And I think it's been a real pleasure to watch our leadership team in particular, and myself, grow in this area. I think of all of the things, difficult conversations are one of those areas whereby no one likes them, but actually once you start to learn the value of them, and the leadership team and the managers start to learn the value of them, you really do see a step change in performance. So I think one of the things I picked up in the last few years is around clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And one of our values is actually be kind. And I think actually that got confused a bit with being nice. So we've got a great group of people and they're all nice, kind people. But as such, often we found that they and even I would avoid some of these difficult conversations. So I think that penny dropped a couple of years ago, and we kind of realized there is a distinction between nice and kind, and there's a distinction between, how you think you're being versus actually what's best for you and them and ultimately the company. And I think the other one is around just being quite sort of direct and open with people. So when it gets to these difficult conversations, and it is really trying to get under the sort of the skin of what's sort of going wrong. So one of the things that I found is and has worked quite well for me recently is asking people how they think they're doing, and if they think they're doing their best work. And if they answer negatively or no to either of those questions, then I kind of just have a very kind of open conversation, just to say, look, if it's not really working for you and it's not really working for us, let's figure out how to get this back on an even keel. Let's figure out how to make this work. Then ultimately, if it doesn't work, life's too short to be stuck in a job that you're not enjoying. And I don't like to have these conversations. I'm sure you don't like to have these conversations. So let's figure out a plan that we can agree on. And if that then doesn't work, then we can just call it a day and we can move on and live a happy life. So it's about, I guess, pushing people in the right way, understanding how they like to be given compliments, how they like to or maybe don't like to, but how they receive more challenging feedback, and then really playing into that as well.
Did you do any sort of formal training with the team, with your managers, when you noticed that this was potentially lacking? How did you go about correcting that?
So my first realization was when I started having coaching myself, and this was maybe four or 5 years ago. And my coach taught me a framework around nonviolent communication, which clearly needs a rebrand, but as a framework, I think is hugely powerful, and is really disarming. So when I kind of started to understand this a bit more, I would coach my direct reports on this framework. And
can you give us a brief rundown of the framework for those that don't know?
Yeah, you've put me on the spot now. So I think the first one is around an objective truth, like an observation. The second step is how that makes me feel. So, for example, AJ, I've noticed that you have been 10 minutes late to the last 3 calls, and as your manager, it just makes me feel that especially to external people, that maybe you're overworked, or you need help with sort of scheduling your priorities. And then the third thing is about how we move forward. So it's about agreeing on a plan. So I think the power of it is the objective truth is something that is undeniable. That there is no argument about it. So straight away, you're kind of, well, hopefully you're on the same page. The second part is about how it makes me feel. Again, you can't argue with how I feel about something. Therefore, the idea is that then you feel sort of a bit of empathy, and I'm sort of sharing that with you as well, and being quite open. And then the plan, the route forward, is something that hopefully we can use to align on how we rectify this, how we move forward. So that for me has been really powerful in both my professional and my personal life, actually, and has really helped me kind of structure conversations. So teaching people that, and the other one is about coaching itself. So when I realized the value of coaching and how much I ultimately got out of it, I really wanted to give that to the team as well. Shout out to More Happy, actually, with the way that they've democratized and really made coaching accessible for all. Because, for 10% of what I was paying for coaching, I've got my whole team on it, and people can use it as much or as little as possible. And it doesn't have to be about work. It could be about something that's happening in your personal life. It could be that you become a new parent, or that you're grieving, or it could be anything. And I just think that the value of coaching and that opportunity is one that should be available to all.
You're the second person in 2 days to mention
Really?
More Happy, and Ashley has done an amazing job. She's also in Founders. I don't know if you've connected with her. I completely agree, and I have got so much personal value from coaching as well. I've since started doing Run Yourself, which is Mika Vipan's company. So Peter Nixie's wife.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you know that company. And their format is they structure it as peer coaching. So you get someone else on the same level, and they train you how to coach, and then both of you, and then you coach each other. And use their platform, and they have AI which supports the coaching experience. And where I have realized a whole new level of value is learning how to coach as opposed to just being coached. And actually similar to nonviolent communication, I've brought in this understanding of how to coach into so many different areas of life and work. And that has been like a whole new level up in terms of my development as a leader, but then also just as a friend, as a partner, all these different things. I ask people, like, if it's in a social setting, I'm just like, do you mind if I like put my coach hat on? And everyone's usually like, yeah, sure. And then it helps massively. So shout out to More Happy, Run Yourself. Both of them are incredible.
I'm going to check out Run Yourself. Absolutely. Because, yeah, when I have had these coaching sessions, I've often thought that would be such a great skill to have and to gift to people, obviously, if they want it. But I've always thought, well, I'm not going to become a professional coach. No, I don't have time to spend dozens of hours learning how to do that. But this sounds like a great alternative.
Exactly. If you're like me, you probably skip most of these sponsor reads. So here's the deal. If you give me 1 minute of your time, I'll give you 1 minute of my suffering at 3 degrees Celsius. Because today's sponsor is Monk Ice Baths. Oh. Now, you've probably heard the hype around cold water therapy and the benefits that it has on your mental health with reduced stress and improved sleep, and then your physical health with muscle recovery and improved circulation. And maybe you've even put together a little DIY version where you turned a chest freezer into an ice bath. I'm really fucking cold. Or you've bought one of those basic cheap crap versions, both of which come with a lot of complications. That's why Monk is your best bet, because it's... I've really lost my train of thought. Which is why Monk is your best option if you're looking to seriously invest in your mental and physical health. Backed by elite athletes like Anthony Joshua, Monk is the most professional and accessible ice bath there is. So, if you're looking to be an elite performer and invest seriously in your mental and physical health, then go to discovermonk.com and use code SCALEWITHSOUL at checkout for a £100 discount, or go to the link in the description. Now, I love this, so I'm going to stay in for a bit longer, but I think you should get back to the episode. Exactly. Okay, so cool. Last thing on culture is it's so difficult to measure. It's so difficult to have data on. It's very difficult to quantify. You kind of feel it, and you can tell whether it's kind of off, and you can tell whether the team's buzzing and everyone's moving in the right direction and everyone's aligned. How do you make this thing which feels quite intangible more tangible? How do you sort of do this culture check-in to see how everyone's doing and whether they're are aligned, or whether like we're in our sort of daydreams and thinking like everything's all good and actually the house is on fire?
Yeah, I think, as you say, culture is intangible. I look at it very similarly to a brand. So for me, culture is internal branding. It's how people think and feel about the brand, the company, the people in it. So my co-founder Lauren's actually brilliant at this. So she's from America, and she's runs the sort of the brand and the marketing team, and is really high energy and is really sort of engaging and always gives it her all. I think in terms of how we measure these things, we obviously have one-to-ones where I said we've got this sort of scale of 1 to 10, so we see how people are feeling. When it's challenging in the market, or if we're missing numbers, often we see that the numbers dip a bit. And then we really try and offset that with more social activities, and we try and find ways to engage the team in different ways. Other things we do, we track our across a dozen different points. We ask anonymous surveys every week. And we can see kind of where we're doing well, which is often relationship with manager, and things around kind of values and things like that. and where we've got room for improvement as well. And that's often around wellness and really kind of helping people switch off at the end of the day or at the weekend, and trying to prevent people that just kind of work 24/7 from doing that, and to kind of protect their own time. So yeah, in terms of culture, it is a really difficult thing to measure, but we look at ENPS, so Employee Net Promoter Score, and then we look at these 12 metrics as well, which gives us a blended score out of 10. And whilst it's not perfect, it is an early indicator or an early warning system for when we need to probably lean in a bit more, or when we're good and we can kind of just sort of focus on other things.
Yeah, it's probably as close to a leading indicator as possible. And then, as you said, like if stuff is stressful, then you see that dip in motivation or how people are feeling as a sort of lagging indicator. But I think these pulse surveys sound really impactful. How often do you do the ENPS?
So it's calculated, I think, on a monthly basis. We were sending out these pulse surveys every week. Then we were seeing the participation rate dwindle because, God, another survey.
Yeah.
So we've now made it bi-weekly, and we've seen participation go up quite a bit. And also the additional feedback where, it's not just a binary or, a Likert scale, where you can actually type in sort of feedback or send good vibes. Where we've moved that to bi-weekly, we're noticing that all increasing. So participation, more comments, so we can really dig into the qualitative data, and also people giving their teammates virtual pats on the back, and a bit of positive reinforcement.
It's not made compulsory, like it's not sort of because my fear is that when things are going good, you're in high spirits, you're more likely to fill out the survey. When things are going bad, you're probably like, it takes a lot of emotional energy to summarize why I'm feeling bad and like word it in a way that it's not really damning to their manager or a teammate or something. And so then it feels like they're less likely to do it. So the data might be skewed. How do you think about it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we typically have about 2/3 of our team fill it in. And you need a minimum of 3 people per segment in order to see any data whatsoever. So that's actually enough for the way that we've structured our company and our teams. But we have looked at making it compulsory, and we have considered making it a key result within our OKRs for the leaders and the managers in the business. We stopped short of implementing it. Honestly, I can't remember why, but it's making me think we should go back to that, because having that feedback is hugely valuable. I think the other thing is that we didn't do a great job in the early years of closing that feedback loop. So people would fill them out and add their comments, and wouldn't really hear much or anything to do with the scores or what we're doing with the information. And we would make sure that we did a deep dive into each quarter on like a town hall, but we weren't doing a great job of reminding people, telling them why it was important, and ultimately what we were doing about it. So one change I introduced is when I was doing monthly senior leadership days with the team, I flipped the script. So we didn't have the kind of the people and culture part at the end when people were tired. Made sure it was right at the start. So the very start of the day, and it was a strategy day each month. The very start of the day, I would share all the scores, and of the 12 categories, I would say, okay, so this is the focus for this month. And the objective is to get it from 7 out of 10 to 8 out of 10. And then I'd report on that each week. And then I'd make sure the next month that we again started with that. So this is our objective. We've done it. Or we haven't done it, so we're going to stick with this one for another month. And actually bringing that focus to the senior leadership conversations each month really made it a lot more powerful and made sure that we were aligned, made sure that we were talking about it. And it also trickled down throughout the business so they could see that we were taking it seriously and that we were doing something about it. That simple change actually has really improved participation, has improved communication and feedback, and ultimately, I'd like to hope it's making us better as well.
Sounds like a really powerful change, and it's just like these small tweaks which end up making a really meaningful difference. Thank you so much for listening to or watching Scale with Soul. It honestly means the world to me that you're here. This is the free version, and so we'll get a lot of value here. But if you really want to level up your knowledge, your awareness, your connection, then we have a membership where you get ad-free listening, access to exclusive content, and private events. So if you really want to scale with soul, then become a member today. Thanks. Speaking on feedback loops, that's something I've heard you speak about a bunch of times, and I think it's really powerful framework. And you've spoken about it more in the context of your customers. And so can you talk about what's the feedback loops with your customers and understanding their needs and challenges, what that looks like?
So first and foremost, I started Snug to solve one of my own challenges. So previous to Snug, I was working in a luxury business that was serving sort of 45 to 65-year-olds. And I guess I couldn't relate to them on a personal level. So it was more just really trying to understand and empathize with what they might be looking for. With Snug, it was more around I had a problem that I needed to solve of my own. So I waited 9 weeks for a sofa to arrive. When it arrived, it didn't fit through the front door. Couldn't send it back and basically lost a bunch of money on it. So I felt that pain firsthand. So I could really understand the challenges that customers were having when trying to purchase a sofa, especially if they're trying to do it online. So that was my starting point. But we realised, we knew from day one that we had to continuously speak to our customers and understand, what was important to them. So we started with a lot of primary and secondary research. So primary research being speaking to people that were having similar challenges to what I was having. And actually what we found is after we spoke to just 5 people, we were getting 80% of the same responses. So that was a really good starting point to understand what was working, what wasn't working in the industry and with the product and with the customer journey. And then we were able to take that and we were able to create longer form research through questionnaires and just using a simple service like SurveyMonkey. We could plug in specific demographics, knowing that our early adopters were going to be young people living in cities, in rented or owned flats and sort of smaller properties. So we started the business with a lot of insight, and as such, we were able to shape our strategy, our products, our whole customer journey around our customers. And then once we launched, we made sure that we had both pre and post-purchase surveys. So pre-purchase surveys were typically Hotjar surveys. So, is anything preventing you from purchasing today? And then if they answer yes, it would be a free text field. And then if they fill that in, it's a question, would you like us to contact you? And we actually found that we'd pick up quite a lot of business from that because it may be, we don't see our delivery date being available, or it looks like the color I want isn't in stock. So that was really good for pre-purchase feedback, and then post-purchase feedback. We would send 2 surveys. One immediately as they purchase, so they're engaged and they're hopefully excited about what they've just bought. And in that, we're really trying to find out about were there any barriers to purchase? Was there anything that almost put you off? And who else did you consider, et cetera, et cetera. And then 2 weeks after they've had delivery, we asked things more specifically around their delivery experience, around now it's in their home. Are they happy? Or is there any issues that they need us to address for them? And also it's an opportunity for upselling as well. So feedback is really key to our whole proposition. And as a direct consumer business, it's something that we have the ability to do very inexpensively. Versus if you're, a wholesale business or a manufacturing business, you don't have access to the end consumers, therefore you're not getting that feedback. And as such, it either doesn't make its way back into the product and the proposition, or if it does, it just happens very slowly.
And are there any other touch points outside of the sort of, let's say, 3 to 4 week purchasing window?
Yeah, so we also have quite a lot of stores. So outside of our website, we've got 30 stores, and in our own stores, we have feedback forms, so daily feedback forms for the salespeople. And in that we ask for any qualitative feedback. So a customer came in and they were looking for something specific that we don't have, or this wasn't clear on the website, or whatever it may be. So each week we would summarize that through our trade meetings, and we would talk through we need to do this a bit better, or this is really resonating with customers, we should be doing more of that, or this doesn't make sense, and we really need to address that. So it's really about encouraging the team to solicit as much feedback as possible, but then making sure that we're acting on that as well. For a time in the early days, we were collecting so much data, and there were so many insights that we couldn't really act upon it quick enough. So we actually reduced the amount of collection points so that we weren't getting inundated and overwhelmed about the amount of data to understand and turn into actionable insights. And I feel like we've reached quite a nice sweet spot now, where we're looking at the product and the customer challenges at different points in the journey, and just making sure that we are tweaking accordingly.
So then you get all of this data, which you then distill into various insights. You then have a long list of potential feature builds or potential things to tweak. How do you then prioritize between all of them? Do you have any sort of framework or process that highlights certain things that need to happen right now that are urgent and important, as opposed to just things that are important?
Absolutely, yeah. So if it's if I use our website as an example, we are digitally native. That is where most of our revenue is generated. So the first thing is, if it's a bug, it just needs fixing immediately, and we do prioritize that based on sort of P1, 2, and 3. If it's preventing someone from checking out, that's the absolute highest priority, and that's sort of important and urgent. If it's more around a feature or a change in the user interface, then we prioritize using the ICE framework. Impact, confidence, and effort. And then we score each of them out of 10, and then we multiply those three columns to get an end result. So we're never short of ideas and experiments. I think probably in the backlog right now we've got over 100 ideas, but that's a more objective way in order for us to prioritize things. And it will never be truly objective because you need people to input into it. But we found that that's a really good way of us making sure we're going after the quick wins and going after the high impact initiatives first.
Could you mind just clarifying what P1, 2, and 3 mean?
It's just priority 1.
Priority 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Cool. Really helpful. Nice. Okay. This is really cool. And I've loved understanding these frameworks and like the philosophy of how you do business. Let's now talk about the journey, because you've been on a wild journey. So started in 2019, £1 million of sales in 2019. I remember you had sort of like, was it 4,000 units that you started with, and then you only sold one in the first week, and then you slowly grew that to £1 million. Is that right? In year one?
Yes. So we established the business in 2018. It took a year of research and development to bring the product to market. We launched in 2019, and yes, exactly. We sold one sofa in the first month, and we sold 2 in the second month and 4 in the third month. So we had about 4 years worth of stock at that sell-through rate. I started the business with Lauren, my wife, and Peter, my father. And Peter was sort of reminding me every day that we've got 6 years of stock, we've got 5 years of stock, we've got 4 years of stock. In a like a bit of a joking way, but the sales doubled every month from obviously a very low base. And by the end of year one, we were a bit surprised ourselves that we were able to generate £1 million of revenue profitably from a standing start. So this is all based off of a great product that solved a real challenge, but then a Squarespace website that our intern built, and just shooting from the hip, really, I'd say. Year two.
Before we go on to year two, what the things that contributed to that, like £1 million cold start, that's epic. How much do you accredit the sort of prior experience you've had in furniture, and then also this year-long R&D process to bring the product to market? Like, which factors do you think had an outsized contribution to that, like, sudden bang, big first year?
So I think it's threefold. The first one is around product, and we essentially reinvented the sofa. So what we did is we designed a comfortable, attractive 3-seater sofa, and then we reverse engineered it so it could be assembled and disassembled in minutes without any tools, and ultimately made sofas flexible so you can grow and shrink it as your needs dictate. So it's really this truly modular Lego-like system for creating a sofa. The second one was around our customer journey. So we decided that we were going to limit the breadth of SKUs so that we could keep deep stock. And by keeping deep stock, we can deliver in 3 days, not in 3 months. And the combination of all of that, in addition to a 100-day free trial and 15-year frame guarantees, et cetera, really de-risked that whole customer journey for online shoppers. And that was a huge diversion from what the industry was doing. So the majority of sofas are still purchased through shops right now. But that's because you have to go in, you have to choose between hundreds or thousands of fabrics. You need to sit on dozens of different models, and then you have to wait 3 months plus for it to be delivered.
And then it doesn't.
And then in my case,
doorway.
it doesn't fit through the doorway, and you can't return it. So there's so much friction in that journey. So we essentially rewrote the script on the product and the customer journey to allow people just to buy online. So product, customer journey, and the third one was brand. And I touched on this briefly earlier, but when we had nailed the product and the journey, we knew that we couldn't go toe to toe with the big guys, the big players in the market, because we just wouldn't cut through. So what we decided on day one is that we had to be a challenger brand. We had to just do things our way and create our own category. So when we launched, it wasn't just launching a new product and a company, but it was also launching a new category, which was a sofa in a box.
So the things that contributed to those three things, the sort of product innovation, came from your deep domain expertise. You spent a long time designing this very unique, adaptable Lego-like sofa. Then the insight as to all the different friction points in the customer journey, that came from like a lot of customer discovery, a lot of research, qualitative, quantitative. And then the new brand, just looking at the market as a whole and being, okay, how are we going to differentiate ourselves, and how does that then translate into our messaging and communication?
Absolutely. Yeah. So at this point, I'd been in the industry for 9 years, and my focus was around physical product design and engineering, marketing and e-commerce. So it's that, imagine it as a Venn diagram. It's that product, e-commerce, and brand as the intersection of all three of those. So that certainly helped, although I didn't feel it at the time, because it still took a year of R&D to bring the product to market. And actually we went to a dozen manufacturers, and none of them wanted to make our product. So some were too busy, some we were too small, some we were too big, and some just completely ignored us. So I thought that having been in the industry for 9 years would add some credibility and would now enable me to move quicker. But ultimately, what we realized, we had to kind of reinvent the way that manufacturers work with retailers. We had to change the way that warehousing worked, and stocking a product rather than it being made to order. And we also had to find a delivery partner that could deliver next day or in 3 days, rather than knowing which orders are coming weeks or months in advance, and having the opportunity to book it all in. So not only did we have to educate customers about there is a new way to shop for sofas, but we had to change the way that manufacturers, warehouse providers, and the logistics industry operated all simultaneously.
Wow. I'm not surprised it took a year. And this is also just like another highlight to how like you just never know what goes on behind the scenes of a business. Like you never know what it takes to get that product in your hands. That's so fast and even more impressive. Year two, go even bigger. Talk to me about year two.
Yeah, so the first year, I think we were only 5 people, something like that. And it was a slow, first 6 months, and then the second 6 months really took off. So year two, we were coming into it with a lot of momentum, and we were able to end year two 7 million revenue and 2 million profit. So hugely successful. And that's when we were starting to put a bit more infrastructure in. So bringing in teams, opening up new departments, and really growing into that kind of that growth. So this was 2020, which was COVID year. So people were staying at home, not spending on hospitality, travel, and as such, they were investing quite a bit more into their homes. The other thing is, because of the way that we designed the product to come in boxes, we were one of the only companies in the industry that could deliver on a one-person service when two people services were essentially outlawed because of COVID. You couldn't have two drivers in a cab only 1 meter apart. So a lot of our competitors either couldn't deliver their product, or because they were selling predominantly through their stores, couldn't even sell product. So we were very well positioned when that happened, and undoubtedly that put a real tailwind behind our growth, which at the time felt. Well, I mean, we were working 24/7. Like we were on the phones in the evenings. We were doing customer service Saturdays and Sundays, and me, Lauren, Peter, and the rest of the small core team. I guess it was kind of right time, right place, right concept, and people were just really buying into it.
Then year 3 was even bigger.
Yeah. Again, we were growing at an incredible rate. So year 3, we ended at 31 million of revenue, and we essentially grew from a small business to a medium-sized business. So we went from around about a dozen people to about 70 people. I just remember one Monday onboarding 12 new people, which in hindsight was just mad and a bit too much. But yeah, it was really, really exciting. And we were trying to grow the company, the category, all whilst trying to figure out how to hire, on board, train, lead, manage remotely as well. So trying to figure out how to use digital tools to our advantage rather than it just be chaos. I won't lie, it was chaos. We really did feel those growing pains through 2022. But the strategy from day one was this kind of mentality around blitzscaling. So let's grow as big, as fast as we can ourselves. So it's bootstrap. And then at the point where we don't feel like we can, keep bootstrapping, let's go out and raise money and go again and expand into the next level. So, the back half of 2022, we were doing, marketing campaigns with people like Catherine Ryan. We virtually filled Wembley Arena with one of our Instagram live streams. Had record revenue days. Our website actually broke because we had too many transactions going through the basket at the same time. It was just wild, absolutely wild. I think we were probably one of the top 10 fastest growing companies in the country at the time. And that was something that we were actively going after as well. And then towards the end of that year, we thought, okay, now's a good time to go out and raise money. We really want to go and expand internationally. So we've done a huge research project on where we'll go and why and how we'll expand from the second country to the third, fourth, fifth. And then we got into the fourth year and the market had different ideas for us.
And before we go into that change in the market, what were some of these scaling, growing pains that you felt most acutely? What did that look like?
So yeah, the one that comes to mind is around our sort of structure and how we structured our teams. So going from 12 to 70 people in a year, the biggest growing pain was really about how we onboarded and then really managed people and workloads. So we took on a lot of different initiatives and projects, and we didn't really have the appropriate structures in place. And I guess what I mean by that is we've got a very young and ambitious team. And a lot of the managers that we made managers were doing it for the first time, or maybe the second or third time, but they didn't necessarily have the experience and in hindsight the appropriate guidance and structures in place. So just one example is we were asking people to have one-to-ones with their teams, but we weren't, or we didn't give them templates, or we didn't check in to see, are they doing it, and what the best practice is, what's working, what's not. And because I guess I and other people on the board were looking at growth and new initiatives and onboarding and scaling, we didn't really get a lot of these basics right, which had we have grown that team over 3 years rather than one, I would like to think that we would have got those foundational things in a lot sooner.
And now I'm assuming you have all of these templates, you have all these structures of how you operate one-to-ones, how you check in with people, you have the pulse surveys to give you more leading as opposed to lagging indicators. All these things are now in place.
Absolutely, yeah. So we when we onboard someone, the first day is very much about the history and the culture, and days 2, 3, and 4 are about meeting people, and then by day 5, we want new starters to feel like they've achieved something, so they come back week 2 feeling like they've already done something. It's not just all hypothetical. And then by the end of month 1, we want them to deliver a bigger project, and then by the end of month 3, they've got all of their OKRs set, and they're off to a good start. And then there's compulsory meetings, trade meetings, one-to-ones, and then team meetings, and then projects and campaign meetings as well. So we've managed to get the structure into a really good place, and then we've got as you say, these pulses and these different options to check in. We also found, especially through the COVID years, but actually even now still as a hybrid business, is coffee mornings have worked really well. So I guess where everyone would be in the office, you might go out and grab lunch, or you might have drinks after work, or there's a bit more of a bit more of a community and a bit more social interaction. We really had to force that in the early years, and someone came up with the idea of having coffee mornings. So every week for a half an hour slot, you would, via Slack, responding with an emoji, you'd say whether or not you wanted to sort of be in on them. And then you'd just be randomly matched with someone in the business. And we were getting really, really good engagement, and people were forming incredible bonds through these coffee mornings. And we ran those successfully for maybe 12 to 18 months. Actually, that's stopped. So that's something that I think is quite good to bring back in. So it's a good reminder.
Any reason why they stopped?
No reason in particular. It's just, I think we probably got busy and we're focused on other things.
Yeah.
But it's hard to sort of keep up with some of these things. And probably towards the end of it, there was dwindling demand as well, and then we would have moved on to another initiative and find another way to engage people.
Got you. And then after this crazy scaling journey, or through it, the rug gets pulled out from underneath you.
Yeah. So year four, so 2022. So we were already feeling the pain of our supply chain post COVID. So what we saw through the COVID years is that material prices went through the roof, freight prices went through the roof. Actually, the price that we were buying our products from factories doubled in about 3 months through 2021 into 2022. And as such, we bought a load of expensive product because we were needing to fulfill demand. Um, and we tried to protect our customers as much as possible. So we tried not to pass too many price increases to our customers, but actually had to put our prices up 4 times in 6 months. So we really went from being a competitive mid-market player to being pushed into more of the kind of premium end of the market. So not quite luxury, but certainly not mass market. And we just didn't really have enough time to react to all of that. So we were still confident in our products. We knew we had a great proposition. We had a great journey and great team, but it was really difficult to justify spending 60% more for that exact same product. So if you bought it a year ago versus if you buy it now, it's 60% more, which, for a sofa it could be £500-600 more expensive just a year on. So we really struggled with that. And I guess our margin got slaughtered. The industry is, you need to spend quite a lot of money just to bring product in, to warehouse it, to distribute it, and the margins aren't that great. So we got hammered there, and then I was fundraising as well, and I couldn't have timed that any worse. So when the business needed me the most, in hindsight, I just wasn't really there because I was speaking to investors, which was fine because we were still performing really well until February 22. And that's when the war in Ukraine started, and cost of living and consumer cost of living crisis, and then consumer confidence dropped to an all-time low. And furniture is a bit like the canary in the coal mine for the economy. So, if you can see there's a downturn coming, then customers aren't going to be spending thousands of pounds on a big ticket discretionary purchase. So we really felt the pain of demand just dropping like a stone overnight. So yeah, it was supply and demand simultaneously, and then the impact of that on our gross margin and our net margin as well. And then I was out talking to spoke to hundreds of investors through 2022, and there was a great appetite at the start, and then it just dwindled, and then we realized that investors were keeping their powder dry, and actually what was a growth story then turned into okay, now we need cash for working capital and to really sustain the business and to keep the lights on. So 2022 is a really, really challenging year. In addition to that, I was also getting married, so my wedding got pushed out twice already, with my wife, who I was working in the business with. So work was 24/7. When we found the odd hour or two, we were planning our wedding, and we were also renovating our house just for good measure as well. So
Why not?
living with my parents or my wife's in-laws. So we were living out of a suitcase for most of the year as well. So yeah, it was the perfect storm. And ultimately we were able to get the investment, but it wasn't quite in in the shape or form as what we thought we would be able to get just a year earlier. We ultimately ended up selling the brand to the second biggest company in the market, to SCS.
And when you started off fundraising, went out raising 10 mil at a 70 mil valuation pre-money.
Yes, yeah.
Which is wild and like such a testament to the previous 3 years. And then by the end of 22, end up selling to SCS for just under 900k.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh, what a hit. Like, what a brutal year. And then now you've been operating under SCS and Snug's been kept as this independent brand within SCS, and you've been allowed to operate relatively autonomously. And now there are more changes happening. So what's going on at the moment?
Yeah, so when SCS purchased us, the way they structured the deal meant that we had to start from zero again. So we lost all of that trading momentum. So it took us probably 6 months to get back up and running properly. We got to we're in quite a good place now, but there was a whole few months at the start of our relationship whereby we were having to renegotiate contracts and really focus on things that weren't building the business and improving the value that we deliver to customers. We managed to get that momentum back up and running in a really good place, and then the group that bought us, SCS, were subsequently acquired themselves. So then they were taken from a PLC to a private business, and as such, we were part of that transaction as well. So, having gone from no M&A experience to having been acquired twice in a year. And now we're under the ownership of Prioritise Sofa, which is a large Italian sofa retailer, the largest in Italy and France, and looking to be the largest in the UK as well.
So before we go on to lessons from a crash course in M&A, how was it going from being fully independent and autonomous and then having to operate under SCS? Like, that's a big change in dynamic and autonomy. Even if they say you're an autonomous brand within their larger brand, you still have to play by certain rules and adjust to their culture. How did that play out?
Yeah, so for context, when we were acquired, we're 60 people, and SCS for 2,500 people. We'd been trading for about 4 years. They'd been trading for 150 years. So the similarities really stop at selling sofas to very different businesses and very different customers as well. So we could see early on that if we tried to integrate the two businesses, it would just completely destroy the value in Snug. So the decision early on was to keep Snug autonomous from SCS, which was absolutely the right decision. And I think I read a stat that was 80 or 90% of M&A fails. And I think quite a lot of that is due to premature integration or rushed amalgamation of people and processes and systems and all the rest of it. So I think that was the right idea. Where it was quite challenging is going from an agile scale up to then being a really small cog in a big machine in a PLC. So we went from quarterly board meetings whereby we would it would be very action oriented. It would be very much around this sort of the opportunities and risks and just cracking on, to then monthly board meetings where it was more around financial reporting and that heartbeat of reporting to the city. And we really lost quite a lot of that fun startup culture that I'd worked so hard to build with Lauren over the previous 4 years. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge. And then the other was around the board dynamics. So we went from a fully independent board that I'd hand selected to then a board of me plus everyone else from SCS. And, clearly all sort of successful business people and very, very intelligent and, good to work with, but didn't necessarily understand how startups work and how they operate and how they're different from an enterprise scale business. So it was quite difficult and slow to get decisions made. And as such, when they were made, we kind of lost out on the original opportunity. And, in startup, speed is the currency. Snug I see as being a pirate ship, and we've just joined the Navy. So we're a bunch of pirates trying to operate in the Navy. And I just think there's a mismatch really in terms of speed and culture and alignment in terms of what our strategy was.
You also mentioned beforehand that they tested some values of yours, and that then I imagine added to the pain of integration. Are you happy to talk about that?
Yeah. So 2 of my personal values are around honesty and integrity. Now, whilst you're going through a fundraise, it's really difficult to be honest with the team, or at least transparent with the team, because you can't take all 60 people along on the journey with you. Or I didn't find that to be appropriate, especially when it was really challenging to raise money, because I didn't want to demotivate and distract the team. But that was sort of one thing. We then went into this PLC environment whereby I was essentially sworn to secrecy, because of the laws of the city and insider trading. I couldn't, and the team really couldn't say or do too much that could potentially impact the share price of our parent company. So I felt like my values of being honest and were compromised as part of that deal. And then I guess latterly, in terms of integrity, there's a whole bunch of things that I would have done differently, but really that were enforced upon us. And I would love to be open with the team about the reasons why certain decisions were made. But I found that in this sort of environment, there's quite a lot of contradicting and opposing personalities and views. And as such, I can't, operate at the level that I'm comfortable with and that I would like to. So I guess, being removed from key decisions, or not being allowed to sort of speak to swathes of our team or even those closest to me about what's happening, really doesn't sit very well with me, having sort of come from a small business whereby everyone knows everything, for better and worse, to being part of a large organization where what you can say is very edited and controlled and contrived, and you have to toe the party line for fear of repercussions and contract law and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of things that I would have done differently, and I feel like I've had to compromise on my own values in order to do that.
What would you have done differently if you got to rewind the clock?
I think on day one of being acquired, I would have probably stood our ground a bit firmer. So there were certain things that I believe to be true that were being kind of washed over quite a bit. So, for example, the way that they structured and transacted the deal, as I say, meant that we had to start from zero again. So, we're on a 20 odd million revenue run rate, and that just stops. It goes down to zero. But my boss and the board decided to take those numbers as if we were a 20 million run rate business and just extrapolate them for the year ahead, and just tell the city that that's what we're going to do. And the issue is that when you're a PLC and you tell the city what you're going to do, you have to then go and do it. So that was an education for me. And I kind of knew that, it's all about quarterly earnings and share price and, make sure you don't miss your numbers. But when I kind of explained that, it's not going to be possible to hit these numbers that you've told the city we can hit, the feedback was, well, no, just figure out how you're going to do it, because I'm not going to go and tell them that you're not going to do it, because you've just got to do it. So, this whole thing about profit warnings is a massive thing in the city. And I knew it was impossible, not just improbable, but it was impossible to hit these numbers. But I was, I guess, so battered by the previous 18 months that I was just quite relieved to, have the business and the team in a more sort of stable, sustainable place. And I was just quite relieved to, not be waking up at 3 a.m. thinking, blimey, can we afford payroll this month? Or, can we afford to pay our suppliers? And, that all kind of washed away. And I guess I just thought, well, this situation is a lot better than where we were 6 months ago or even a month ago. Therefore, I'm going to roll with it. And I'm just going to kind of, toe the party line, and I'm going to do these things. But in hindsight, I'd set the team up to fail when I didn't. I tried maybe 3 times, but I probably should have been a bit more incessant and really landed that point.
God, stuck between a rock and a hard place with no energy left.
None.
Sounds
Completely burnt out.
Really tough.
Yeah.
So you're now in a whole different situation where there's a repeat of a second sale within the year, and you have Petronas that have now bought CSC. What does this mean for Snug?
Yeah, so going back to this sort of pirate navy analogy, I can see that I can't really operate as well as I would like to in that much larger structure, because I like to analyze something, pull out the insight and then act on it. So I could see that this new world wasn't really for me, and I was growing increasingly frustrated with it. And as such, I was starting to think about different ways to kind of like move forward and either with or without the brand. And with the acquisition from this year, so Petronas Sofa taking SCS private, I was told that there was then an opportunity to carve Snug back out as a standalone brand, and ultimately for me to be given the opportunity of buying it back and taking it forward. Now, that's really attractive to me because I love the brand, I love the team. I think we've grown a really strong category of which we're leading, and it's really solving a problem that wasn't being solved before. And it's something I've been working on for 6 years, and it's it's got a very special place in my heart and Lauren's heart as well. So I have the opportunity of buying the brand back. I guess the challenge is the requirement to transact very quickly. So this merger that's happening with the two larger companies above us is sort of all consuming and is the focus for SCS, understandably. So therefore, we're seen as a bit of a sideshow, as a bit of a distraction to that main thing. So they want this all to happen very quickly. And as I know, and as I'm sure many others know, in the world of raising money or M&A, there's sort of two speeds, and it's slow and stop. Doing something quickly is just not really a thing yet, I guess. So yeah, I'm up against that. I've got those challenges to try and deal with. So I guess going back 6 years, it was about trying to speed up manufacturers and logistics. Now it's about trying to speed up lawyers and boards and financial advisors and investors to try and get this transaction done.
How are you weighing up this decision? Because I'm sure there's also this other side of the coin where it's could just call it a day and be like, that was a mad journey, let's go and start completely afresh, which is appealing to any founder that has been through half of what you've been through. And so you have these different paths that you could take, and I love that you're still passionate. You and Lauren are both still passionate about Snug. What deal would make sense for you to continue? And then in what circumstances would it be okay, time to go and be a pirate somewhere else?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to answer right now. So there is a fork in the road. One is the coup and taking Snug back and relinquishing the sort of the Navy's control of the pirate ship and returning it to greatness. And that is really compelling. I mean, we've got a fantastic brand and a team and set of customers and community. We've got the largest community in the industry, and they're the most engaged as well. So that's the allure of all of it. And I've got some quite exciting new product development ideas and things that we can do with our customer journey and the way that I would like to reinvent our culture and the way that we bring our team along for the journey with equity and skin in the game. So that's quite exciting on the one hand, but there's a lot of things that need to fall into place very quickly in order for that to happen. And the market is the worst it's been in living memory. So, I think, and in fact, I know our industry is still in recession, and people aren't really spending on big ticket items, and that's, I guess, the flip of it, and that's the risk of going back into this, and it's sort of out of the frying pan into the fire potentially. And then the other fork in the road is it's starting a new business, and I've always said that Snug is my first business, and there's so many things I now know, and even known unknowns and the network that I've built, and all of the things that I would do the same differently, and the sort of the core team I would start with. I've already got my team sheet all lined up. That's really exciting. Just a fresh slate and a sort of a fresh opportunity to go and disrupt or challenge another industry, or even sort of a different part of a similar industry. And I guess I haven't fully decided one way or the other at the moment. Both have their pros and cons. But either way, it'll be diving back in two-footed and going back into this kind of startup, scale-up world again.
And it might all come down to a single game of poker.
Yeah, so I was having drinks with friends the other day, and I was sort of sharing my dichotomy and challenges, and one of them came up with a fantastic idea, and it was to play the new owner of Snug, the ultimate owner of Snug, SCS Petronasofa, play him a game of poker for the company. So I haven't actually had any conversations with him in the 5 months that he's owned the business, but if I'm able to get in touch with him, and if he's partial to a game of poker, then I might have to try and record it and head out to Monaco for a game of poker for the business. So
have to brush up on your poker before then. It's high stakes.
Yeah, I used to be good about 10, 15 years ago. I haven't played since. So as you said before this, maybe it should just come down to a coin flip. Leave it to fate.
Well, it feels like you've been dealt your fair share of bad luck. And so it feels like fate is going to be kind to you now as the time. And I am so impressed with the level of resilience and eagerness to jump right back in with 2 feet. And it's just a massive testament to you as a founder, because that is one of the undeniable characteristics of all of the great founders out there. So
Thank you.
I feel like the future looks bright, and this past period, 2 years of hell, will only contribute to you going from strength to strength. So thank you so much for coming and sharing everything. This has been like amazing, and such an incredibly detailed, under the hood look at your journey in the last 4 years. And just want to like take my hat off to you, because like fair play that you're still here, you're still kicking and screaming, and could come out with your company back and then a fresh start.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
It's amazing. Wow, man.
Yeah, it's fucking wild.
Wow.
It's really wild. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the Truman Show. I'm like, is someone like watching this for like sadistic pleasure? It's like, like running the business with my wife is the best thing and the worst thing in the world. When times are good, it's like the best thing, because it's all consuming. You know, it's holidays, it's Christmas, it's everything. When it's not going well, it's tough, because again, it's all consuming, and it's holidays, and it's Christmas, and it's everything. So yeah, no, that's been again an education for me in terms of how to deal with those different dynamics of business, life, and everything in between.